Okay, let's dive right into this. Picture of boardroom. You've got a room packed with brilliant executives, decades of combined experience, top-tier education, and yet sweat is literally forming on their brows. Despite all this massive brainpower, these leaders still make catastrophic, incredibly expensive mistakes. So why does this happen? Well, that's exactly the core mystery we're unraveling in today's explainer. We're looking at a framework called THINK25, and its core argument: when high-impact decisions go completely sideways under pressure, it almost never has to do with a lack of competence. No, it has everything to do with unseen forces silently steering the conversation.
To figure out how to fix this, we're going to follow a pretty clear roadmap today. First up, the true cost of decisions. Second, decision intelligence versus mere motivation. Third, the mechanism in practice. Fourth, the model for professionals. And finally, Section 5, why you need to give your brain a chance.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the true cost of decisions.
Before we even look at solutions, we really have to challenge our own assumptions here. Seriously, ask yourself, how much time and money is your organization losing simply because you don't have a decision framework? Every single day, leaders are forced to make these high-impact calls. They're fighting the clock, they're dealing with incomplete info, and most dangerously, they're navigating completely invisible cognitive biases. We always ask ourselves, how can I think better, right? But Think25 forces us to ask this much harder, much more concrete financial question. Because unstructured executive meetings, they carry incredibly high stakes.
And that brings us straight to the core issue. The problem is not a lack of intelligence, it is a lack of structure. Just imagine an executive committee spending 3 agonizing hours debating a crucial move. They finally make a choice, everyone nods, they pat each other on the back, and leave the room. Then, 6 months later, that exact choice reveals itself to be a massively expensive error. But here's the thing, it wasn't because anyone in that room was incompetent. It happened because absolutely no one made the underlying cognitive biases visible. The bias was just silently molding the entire conversation. Without a structure to catch it, raw intelligence alone just wasn't enough to stop the mistake.
Moving on to Section 2, decision intelligence, not motivation.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it redefines what we actually need in those high-stakes moments. We have to clearly define what Think25 provides, and it all centers around this concept of a defensible decision. Basically, a defensible decision is a choice where the logical path that led you there can be clearly explained and justified, whether that's to a board, to investors, or during an internal audit. Think25 is not some generic positive thinking tool. It's definitely not a pep talk. It's a step-by-step framework rooted in applied neuroscience. It literally takes all that messy executive uncertainty and transforms it into a defensible strategy. Because, let's be real, it is not enough for a decision to just feel right in the moment. When the auditors come knocking, you need to show the math of your logic.
And you can see the difference between these two approaches is pretty stark. Relying on generic productivity might make a team feel better temporarily, like a quick motivational pep talk, but it completely fails to change the underlying mechanics of how they actually choose. Structured decision intelligence, on the other hand, offers a concrete promise. The goal is to drastically reduce the time it takes an executive committee to reach a decision and demonstrably reduce documented judgment errors. And it does this through a repeatable process that literally any team can learn and apply.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds the mechanism in practice.
Okay, let's look at a real-world scenario. Imagine an executive team debating whether to cancel a failing project. You know the drill. The discussion is anchored by that classic phrase, well, we've invested so much, we can't stop now. This is emotional inertia at its finest. It's a textbook sunk cost fallacy where the team is justifying future actions based on unrecoverable past costs. Enter the Think25 framework. It steps in and forces the team to reformulate the question. It asks, if we were deciding today, from scratch, without the investment we've already made, would we start this project? It's such a simple, structured question, but it immediately severs those irrelevant past costs from the relevant future expected value. A real game changer.
And that leads us right into this highly replicable 3-step format. Step 1, identify the cognitive bias. So, in our last example, that was the sunk cost fallacy. Step 2, apply the structure to reformulate the question, completely separating the emotion from objective value. And step 3, show the documented result. Here is the absolute beauty of this mechanism. After going through these steps, the ultimate decision might completely flip, or the team might actually reaffirm their original choice. But if they do stick with it, it's now fully documented and valid. It's based on rock-solid reasoning rather than unseen bias. Every single case becomes concrete proof of the mechanism actually working.
All right, on to Section 4, the model for professionals.
So now that we understand the mechanism itself, how is this actually deployed out in the wild?
Well, Think25 offers a powered-by model for both external and internal consultants. We're talking HR departments, executive coaches, and leadership consultants who can license this exact framework. Think of it like dropping a high-performance, fully validated engine right into your own custom car. This is huge. It means professionals don't need to waste years building and testing a decision methodology from scratch. The professional brings the relationship, the client trust, and their own custom application, while Think25 provides all the neuroscience-backed horsepower underneath.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Give Your Brain a Chance.
So, the crucial point here is that adopting a structure like this isn't just some nice-to-have perk anymore. It's an absolute necessity. Today, companies and leaders are facing unprecedented scrutiny over exactly how they arrive at their decisions. Whether that scrutiny is coming from investors, internal teams, or strict regulators, simply shrugging your shoulders and saying, hey, we relied on our gut instinct is no longer an acceptable answer in high-responsibility environments. The pressure is just way too high, and the margins for error, they are way too thin.
And this is where Think25 fills that exact critical gap. Before the intense pressure of the boardroom and the silent pull of cognitive bias can make the decision for you, you need structure. As the source material powerfully concludes, give your brain a chance. So I'll leave you with this. The very next time you step into a high-stakes meeting, ask yourself, are you going to let invisible biases take the wheel, or will you build a defensible track to success? Give your brain a fighting chance and structure your next big decision. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.